All right. Thank you guys for being here today. This is Modern Day Prophets. I am here with somebody that I am so excited to introduce to you. He goes by Zay Marr, but I know him as Isaiah. And I'm beyond excited to be able to talk to him and hear what his experience has been like through this. I got to meet him about 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. I met Isaiah, actually. He came to a public speaking event that I was speaking at, and I gotta tell you, I was so nervous about that event. I was so unsure if I wanted to show up for that event. I wasn't feeling very confident, but I did show up, and giving that speech, Isaiah was the one in the crowd that was nodding his head, that was giving me reassurance that he was resonating with what I was saying, and so really helped my confidence level too, because if you've ever done any kind of public speaking or any on-the-spot interviews, anything like that, you know, it can shake your confidence a little bit. And so after meeting Isaiah and hearing what he did and listening to some of the things that this guy has created, he blew my mind. So I'm going to have him introduce himself, and then we're going to dive into some questions about his journey through this, maybe a little bit before COVID, and then how he's been creating through this.
Yeah. So my name is Zay Marr. I'm a recording artist, songwriter. I'm a hip hop fanatic. I love rap music, but I especially love music that has soul in it, that tells stories, that empowers and encourages people. So that's what I choose to make, and just capture my human experience and the things I've learned and what I believe, what I've been through, and I try to help other people with it, whether that's through the song recording or through a performance or even a conversation like this. So that's what I'm about. I also work for a mental health organization, and I'm a youth peer support. So basically that means I use my lived experience of my mental health journey and my recovery to help other young people ages 16 to 25 through their journey. And I'll tell you, it's very challenging, but it's super rewarding, not financially, but just on a fundamental human connection level. The payoff it's amazing. Just watching like the lights come on, when you look at somebody, I don't think you could pay for something like that. So yeah, that's what I'm about.
Well, and one of the very first, I think it was the very first video that I watched of yours was Chosen. And I remember watching that video with an open mouth, because I was so blown away by your talent. It wasn't that, not only am I in love with the words and in love with the story of Chosen, but I could see, because I was kind of going through what it took to build something, and the dedication and the commitment that it took to build something. And so I saw like the 10,000 hours before that, and I was just impressed. I was impressed at how just like the level that it was at an extraordinary level. And I know that you're just going to keep going through those levels in your life, but again, it just awe-inspired me. And Chosen has had such an impact on my life, and being able to witness and being able to be a part of some of your shows and seeing the people that you inspire and where you inspire them and how you inspire them, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. When did that, like when Chosen came out, was that like the beginning of your feeling like you were hearing your calling? Or like, tell us a little bit about like kind of what woke you up in your life to make some serious changes.
Yeah. Well, first I want to say thank you for all those compliments.
That's okay. I get to fangirl. I love it.
No, I'm grateful because and just hearing how that song impacted you is really amazing to me, because I made that song in 2016, and I was in college, and that song actually was birthed out of a sense of like hopelessness, which would be surprising to anybody that listened to it, because I mean, it's a pretty hopeful song. It's the idea that we're all chosen for something.
Yeah.
We all have gifts. We all have special abilities. We're all going to impact people in a unique way that maybe nobody else ever can.
Yeah.
So that message is way different than where it came from, because I was just sitting in my dorm room alone, and I had been rapping for a few years before that and making songs. But then, I don't know, I was just sitting there and I was like, why am I in school? Why am I going in debt for college? Why am I still making music? You know, these shows aren't having an impact like I thought they would, or like I expected. You know, my music isn't getting heard like I would like it to be. Maybe I'm just a joke. Maybe I'm just a fool. Maybe I just, you know, maybe I should just stop.
You, my friend, you were facing your ego.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
For real. That's where I was at, you know, and I just had this moment where I was just sitting there and thinking all these thoughts, just feeling crowded in my mind and very anxious and sad. And finally, I just said a prayer and I prayed to God, and just like, what do you want me to do? What do you want from me? Like, who am I? And I felt the word chosen, and that's going to sound weird, but like,
it doesn't sound weird at all, my friend.
Yeah, it sounded weird to me because I was just like, what? Like, it was, I didn't physically hear it, but it was in my mind.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's not your voice.
Yeah. And it wasn't even like you are chosen or it was just the word chosen. And I was like, all right. But like, I had it in my mind and I felt security in that. I felt that it was true.
Yeah.
And it gave me peace. And so I said, okay, chosen, what does that mean?
So what's next?
So for me, I looked to the Bible, and in the Bible, there's, what do you call that? Basically like a table of contents, but it has like keywords and it shows you like what page, like all the pages that word.
Okay.
Yeah. So chosen was on there, and there was a few different verses, but the one that stuck out to me was 1 Peter 2:9. And the reason that stuck out to me was because of the number 29. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but like 29 is like my 29 and 11, but like 29 is definitely when I see that number, it calls to me. And I don't know why, but I know it does. And it's like, for me, it's like one of those little things that God's like, hey, like you're on the right path, or like, I want you to look at this, if that makes sense.
Yeah. God works.
So I saw that.
God works in synchronicities. Well, and I think if you ever looked up the number 11 too, because I'm a life path number 11. Simba's got an 11 on his back, and when 11 comes up, to me, it's always been trust. So if you look up the number 11, you'll find that it's got very large universal messages. Yeah. That it's showing you too. So it shows up when it's meant to.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, flipping through, and I was like, okay, so I read it, and it says, you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, that you have been called out of the darkness into the Lord's magnificent light. So that whole idea of being pulled out of darkness into light, I felt like that verse really just encapsulated everything I've been through in my life. Just all the darkness, all the hopelessness and depression and anxiety and feeling lost, not heard, overlooked, all these emotions that I've experienced time and time again growing up. Yeah. And as a young man, it really like encapsulated, like, I was not created to be stuck in that.
Yeah.
All that pain is just, it's a catalyst to what I'm meant to do, what I was created for, which is to encourage and inspire other people with what I've been through.
Yeah.
So when I read that verse, I was like, yo, like, I feel like this verse was created for me in a sense. Like I just, it resonated with me so deeply. And so I went online and I don't remember how I found the instrumental music for Chosen, but I did find it online. And then, but as soon as I heard the music, I was like, I gotta write something to this. And it was just, I don't know, the song just came out. And it was interesting because the way I wrote that song, it wasn't how I wrote songs before that. Like this song, it was like very, there were different patterns I was using that I never used before. And I was just like trying something different. And I wrote that song in like one session. And hit up my buddy Dan, and he recorded it in his bedroom, and he's a great audio engineer, so he mixed and mastered it, and I put it out, shot a video for it, and the rest is history. I mean,
it just came together, and I think that that's probably why I resonated with it so much, so much, because I understand and I've seen that story. I know that story of being pulled out of the darkness. I know that an expression like that usually comes, and you and I were just talking about it, when you faced your deepest fears. And, when you're in that, when you're in it, looking for the light and listening for those messages that show you and that guide you to your calling and to your purpose. And I think where we get it wrong is we get uncomfortable in that. And, we spend a lot of time in resistance to it. That's the getting in the loop of all the self-doubt. Well, I'm not good enough. I don't know, the pursuit of perfection that tanks us, right? The pursuit of perfection that keeps us from expressing yourself in a way that you did. And from somebody that was like creating a podcast and had just started doing videos and putting together, not music by any means, but it was like the symphony that came together for that. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. So
I like that analogy that you said, because that was as you were saying it, that was the thought I had, was like, you said it's not music, but it's a symphony, because I mean, life is music. It's like everything we're doing, everything we're creating, it's got that same energy, and I don't know, that's just how I think about a lot of things that happen. Like right now, a lot of our nation is singing a sad song for a number of reasons, and I don't know, it's like every day we have a choice of like, what type of music am I going to make today?
Absolutely.
I
know. I think one of the driving forces in my life, especially with going through sorrow or those stories, when we battle with those stories that really aren't true, and then going through the expression of what it feels like to finally let them go, to lay down that weight, like there's beautiful stories through all of that. I would like to think that as a society, we don't have to. This may just be wishful thinking. I would like to think we've hit our rock bottom in change and transformation, and, saying that, like being willing to look at things in a different way.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that's happened yet, but that is my greatest hope for humans, is that that we've learned from what's going on right now, that we've, that the ripple effect has started with enough people that we can carry, a better message forward. And whether you have to dance with the world, whether you have to sing to the world, whether you have to write to the world, whatever you do to express yourself to the world, like how can you walk through it in an inspired way?
I definitely hope that is the result of what's happening right now. And it just really does come down to the individual. Because there's catastrophic things, there's heartbreaking tragedies that happen every day. They're just all not all of them are as publicized as others.
Everything is being amplified right now, and this is where I think we have each of us, and this is maybe where I press kind of more on one of those sides of like being productive than thinking that this doesn't matter at all. I would probably, and it's not about being productive, but it's just taking like a moral obligation to carry better messages forward.
Sure.
And if each one of us could do that in a way Like, that's how we change the world.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's I know a lot of people are allowing hopelessness because they think that these entities are too big. But it just takes your next action. It just takes like that action one step at a time to break down the distance that, you know, the distance that we have. And you just never know the power of one. I mean, if you think about how I met you, how you've inspired people that have met me, how you've inspired tons of other people with wherever you go with your story, and just frankly your heart. You know, you have a open heart, and people can feel that right away. And not only, like, you're also like getting up on stage and showing people how to be brave and how to be courageous, because it takes, like, it's not like you walk up on that stage and you start and you're like, oh yeah, I got it, like everything's all good all the time. Like, that's not how it happens.
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice.
I mean, that would be boring. That would be boring.
Yeah. I do agree. I agree, because I do think that when I think about it, I feel like as humans, we do have, as you put it, a moral obligation to tell a narrative, whatever that means, whatever that looks like, and not even necessarily in a format that's predictable, like writing or a song. Like usually when you think about those platforms, you think about, oh, somebody is telling a story of some kind.
Yeah.
But I guess those are definitely included, but I guess I'm more so referring to like telling the narrative by example, like the way you live. I think that's the most important thing, because people tell stories every day. I mean, there's so many books in the world, there's so many songs in the world, but at the end of the day, how did you live the day? How did you live through quarantine? How did you live your life? And those are the questions like I need to ask myself.
Those are beautiful questions. Those are beautiful questions. And I hope this audience is listening to literally the questions that he's throwing out there. Because if you can start asking yourself better questions and start being accountable to those answers, your life changes.
Definitely. Yeah. And to say that, yeah, I wish I could say, no, I don't even wish I could say this, because it wouldn't be true. But I'll be honest and say, like, this season has not been the best for me, and that's okay. Like, I'm okay with that. There's things that have happened that I never would have thought happened, both good and bad. Like that's how I choose to view them. But like, at the end of the day, it's like, I know not only like, am I and we gonna get through this, but like, lately I've really been in the space of just like, okay, do the simple things. Do the simple things. Like the last 2 nights I've just gone for a run, you know, and just been one with my body and my mind, you know, and just getting back to the bare basics of like, okay, what does Isaiah like to do? What is, you know, and trying to get in touch with my emotions. Like, these are all things that aren't sexy to a lot of people. These aren't things that I put on my Instagram of like, hey guys, today I did some soul searching, and guess what? I have suppressed feelings. Like, that's not, I could do that, but I'm not going to, because I'm not ready for that. And that's okay. So like, when we talk about, I
want to stop you for a second here, because I want to disrupt that thought a little bit that you have about not being the best in this season. You are being your absolute best in this season.
Sure.
You are being your absolute best in this season, and you are listening intuitively to what that means. Being the best and having this comparison, like, just shoot that comparison, like, just blow that up. Whatever that best there's no, you guys, and this is something that we really have to look at as human beings, because especially with social media, and especially like with not giving instruction on how to use social media in the best ways for us, we tend to use it for comparison. And we've programmed an already innate, like, primal thing that we do now. We've amplified it with Facebook and Instagram and influence and everything like that. And that doesn't matter. Like, that doesn't matter. Like, where you are right now, like, that getting to a place of this is the best me, even if it doesn't look like what you used to look like. That's good. That's growth. That's transformation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely, when I say that, like, I'm not in the best space, I guess I just mean, like, not in a competitive nature towards anybody else, but just in certain areas of my life that I was doing previously,
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, because I'm a very goal-oriented person, and I love that feeling of just setting a task, like setting a goal out and then achieving it. And it just, I don't know, I just really enjoy that. And, you know, so it's like, I appreciate that, you know, you reframed it in a sense, because it is true. You know, I do believe I'm right where I need to be, and I'm doing what I need to do. You know, in terms of, like, that moral obligation of, you know, telling that narrative, you know, for the betterment of the world, like you said. I'll say it in two pieces. Like, the first part is, like, I agree with that. I feel like we all in some way do have that calling. I also do believe at the same time that not every moment should be broadcasted. Like, not every moment do we have to readily, like, put it out there. And all I mean by that is, like, I want to be tactful with what I put out into the world.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, this is just me personally too.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
other people may
No,
totally be
I'm
smart,
good.
but
I'm good.
I just feel like with what I put out there, for instance, even today, I had some thoughts about what happened with George Floyd in Minneapolis. And I had certain thoughts that don't go against what the larger narrative is saying right now, because there's a lot of pain. It's a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
What happened, but there are certain thoughts that I had that I want to make sure I formulate them clearly before I put it out.
Have you
So
ever,
that's all I'm saying.
yeah, have you ever heard of Brene Brown?
I have. She's great.
Yeah. So she talks about wrestling, like you don't give other people, first off, you don't give other people your shitty first draft. Like,
Not usually.
you know, yeah, like, you know, the intention is that, you know, we wrestle with that story until your response as a person doesn't weigh on my outcome. So I thought that was really, really powerful, but because I think that there's something too, like with what you're doing right now, you know, it's like professing over practicing. And you know when you're in it because you're not professing. Because you're in the practice of it, and you're in the practice of it right now. And that's the part that, you know, that's not the part that I think, like, where the inspiration lives. I think it's because of the practice, like, you earn your intention with your words, like you earn it, and maybe you don't even have to respond at that point once you've worked out the story. And the story is that, you know what, there's a lot of negative things that are going on right now, and maybe you're just not even choosing to entertain, you know, maybe you're entertaining your attention someplace else.
Right.
You know, like, so
exactly.
it's wrestling, it's kind of wrestling with that story. But again, if you're watching a lot of social media and stuff like that, again, there's a lot of comparison of what people are doing, how people are reacting, especially when there are these things that are not showing the best of our humanity. And again, I think taking a pause and taking that, like, reflection before we decide that it's worthy enough of our time and attention to broadcast, I think that's your whole path that you've gone down. you're careful with your words. You're intentional about your message. You know,
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
comes through in your stories. Like that's the building, you know.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. I like that. That's good.
Well, and so going through this, so our world totally changed, and we had like a toilet
Yeah.
paper incident that freaked everybody out, and then this stuff that just keeps kind of compiling on what's going on. Like, what have you discovered through this that without this time and attention, like you wouldn't have found?
Hmm. Yeah. I would say I would say I took for granted the accessibility of special places. Um, like down to like the little coffee shops I would just spend, my evenings reading or writing, or just sitting there and just being, not even speaking to anybody, but just being around people,
Yeah.
in that capacity. Like, so I think that's one of the bigger things is, I've grown a deeper appreciation for those special places that I utilize. Because I don't know, when you're in the moment and just, live in your daily life, sometimes it's, for me, I can be so focused on like where I'm headed, but also living in the moment, but just like, it's easy to not truly grasp like, man, this place is like so special, especially when you go there like regularly. It can
Yeah.
almost feel like habitual, but yeah. So I've realized I miss a lot of special places that I can't go right now.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and that's
but
one gift of the universe right now is allowing, and it's hitting us. There are some people that are, oh, that came up. There are some people that are still having to work through this. There are some people that have like all the time in the world from this. Like everybody's kind of at different stages. But what I think that like the universe has literally allowed us to grow our appreciation of how
oh,
convenient
absolutely.
how convenient we're
Yeah.
living.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's nice to hear appreciation is a part of our lives. Appreciation is a part of our joy. And you are not the only one, my friend, who is going through a life and just,
Mhm.
maybe more future focused, or not living so much in the present of just being able to look around and say, hey, what am I really appreciating about this moment? And we're learning a very good lesson of what happens when we don't have that.
Yeah. It's definitely it's a juggling act. That's the way I view it, because it's important to be future oriented,
Mm-hmm.
in my mind, not even just as an individual, but just globally. That's with medicine, with technology. Like, so many organizations and companies are future focused because they're trying to develop, usually, hopefully, a better way of living
Yeah.
for humanity.
Yeah.
But then it's also important to reflect on the past. Like, that's why we have history books, whether they're accurate or not. I mean, that's up for debate, but
Right.
but even in our personal lives of like, okay, how how do I conduct myself in relationships, whether they're romantic, professional, family? Like, are there themes going on? You can tell a lot from the past, not
Yeah, you can.
necessarily that it defines your present or determines your future, but you can definitely see trends.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
I think they're both important, but within the context of the very utmost truth that we all know fundamentally, but is hard to practice, of like, the present is all we have.
Yeah.
It's all that we really truly have right now.
Yeah.
And so, like, and nobody teaches that and it's different because I think it's not even tangible, but it's so different for everybody. Like, how do you balance how do you find equilibrium between being future focused, learning and reflecting on the past, but living and being content with the present? Like
Yeah.
I think that's
Well, that's not an easy journey. I say that is the journey of life, my friend. And
exactly.
it's looking at these dualities that we have in our lives and opening up opportunities and open up possibilities and bridging. I like to call it like bridging the gap between our human nature and our spiritual calling. Like that is the footsteps, and that is the failures. That's the awkwardness. That's the the open expression. That's all of it.
Yeah.
Like, and that doesn't ever fit into one way for anybody.
Some people like to think it does.
I know. Well, everybody's got an opinion. Absolutely, everybody
True.
has an opinion, and you know what? I think that what I like about you, and when you speak, is you speak about your perception. I speak about my perception. I think one of the things that can get us really far is when we hold space to, whether I agree with you or not, like, you don't have to be wrong. Like, I don't have to be right. And I think in relationships, when people can start to communicate in a way that we hold space for each other, because we all know, like, along the way, we're getting our asses kicked. At some point, we will be, on the ground, we'll have blood on our face. We're gonna, like, there are gonna be those failures. Anytime that you express what's in your heart, there's going to be failures, and that's included in all of this. How do we balance technology with that? How do we balance convenience with that? Like, we're gonna have a lot of fumbles. I feel like, we've been fumbling a little bit, and that's where the universe is like, whoa, like, we got to call some sort of a timeout here.
Yeah. Well, my thing is, I just had this thought, and it might have been said before, but I don't know. I just thought of it, but I feel like when we fumble, it makes us humble.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know if it's been said before, but I've never heard it.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I just made that up. But
yeah, I like it. It's corn. You got it.
Yeah. You can have that one. I might put that in song. But it's so true though. When we fumble, like, we realize that, oh, maybe I don't have it all together. Maybe I do have more to learn. Maybe I should open my mind some more. Maybe I should put my ego to the side. Like, it's important. It's really important it's important and inevitable that we're going to fumble the ball.
Yeah.
In life. Like,
well,
probably daily in certain areas of life. Like,
I have personally done it daily, folks.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've done it a couple of times a day. There is no question, but
yeah, same.
I have some grit and I've got some resilience, so I'm always getting my butt back up. But
it's about,
like, there are some days, man. But there are also, since finding more of like a purpose-driven way, a purpose-driven expression, there has also been like this incredible joy and meaning and energy that I've been able to tap into and pull out of a new expression in ways that I never expressed myself before. And, when that comes through you talk about chosen, just pour, like, literally somebody tapped on your shoulder, whispered a word to you, and knew that you would know what to do with it.
Yeah. Wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. And that doesn't happen too often, at least for me. I feel like for some people it might, though. Like, they get these revelations, or these just clear communication from the universe, from God, from their higher power. And I think in some capacity we all are getting those messages, but they're not always as clear.
Yeah.
And like in your face.
Yeah.
So.
I agree. I think too, like, it's, with our eyesight, when we go to a different level of consciousness, we see things in front of us that weren't there before. So that's where we have to provide some grace for people. Like, and I think if we could do this as a society right now and just be like, hey, everybody, is doing the best that they can right now and offer that grace to people, like we could move forward in a new way that's going to be helpful to everybody, instead of creating these big social separations and divides and everything by calling each other right or wrong or whatever. Like, that's what got us into this mess, ultimately. You know, that's what it's those choices. It's those lack of, it's more focused, it's ego driven, it's not purpose driven, and it's more focused on, you know, what we've lost, what we don't have, what we're afraid of, what's bad. And, you know, if we could just like take our focus and just be like, okay, well, what can we, you know, what can we find that's good? What can we amplify that's a beautiful story right now? What can we, and I think we're catching, you know, some of us are catching up to that, but, you know, hopefully that's a direction that we could be taking. And I think for artists like you too, that's, I want to do everything I can to help promote you in your journey, because you've got some words, you've got some words that are going to help people.
I appreciate that. And I think it's important to promote and to highlight things that are positive, with like, not just for the sake of like it being positive. Like, and here's what I mean. Like, I feel like some of the most moving stories I've heard or things I've seen is when there's like a negative, something that could be perceived as so negative and so terrible and horrible, and it's true, like that is a true story, but then whoever's telling the story, or whoever's like living that narrative through their actions or their words, they demonstrate how they've bounced back from that, and how they're using that experience to change the world in a positive way. Like, I think those are the most monumental examples, because I mean, it's so easy to be like, hey, don't worry, be happy, hey, like thumbs up, smile. It's like, those things are okay, but like they're very surface level to me. And they don't,
it's very superficial.
Yeah, they're very superficial. And like, you know, and whatever, that's a part of our culture, but like fundamentally it's like, okay, something is going to connect with me way more, and I think with people in general way more, when it's something so genuine and real and raw.
Yeah.
But like, yo, here's how I'm dealing with it, and it there's going to be some ugly in there. You know, so I think sometimes we demonize when things are like real or like true, and they're not the most pretty. You know, it's like, oh no, I don't want to, you know,
you want to cover up the messy.
Yeah, I don't want to
ignore it
about that. I want to live in my la la land, which that's your right. People can live in whatever land they want, mentally or emotionally or spiritually. But like, when it comes to actually like feeling and like connecting with people, like you need that truth, and you need that, like, this is what it was, but this is how I'm choosing to move forward. This is what I'm choosing to do with that. Yeah. So.
Well, I think that's where we have a really big opportunity right now to introduce some new ways of educating, some new ways of being able to change your perspective by, you know, being able to ask those questions of yourself, because ultimately, you know, all the questions that you ask yourself, to me, like what those bring you to is those bring you to your meaning, those bring you to your values, and those bring you to your priorities. And you use those as a light to do those little steps, you know, to do, because literally, I mean, you can't do any other step other than the first step in front of you. And I think that's, you know, with those values and principles and priorities, again, we're just constantly looking at these stories, and it's like almost, especially with on social media, we still can't help but judge it in some way. And we waste a lot of times, you know, judging that. We waste a lot of time about where people are at. And again, if we allowed just everybody is doing the best that they can right now, and really brought the focus back to what I can do. What am I doing?
Yeah.
How am I showing up as a role model? How am I showing, not to just anybody around? Like I've been quarantined with these two cats. I look at myself daily and be like, hey, how can I be a good role model to them? Because they're who
Yeah.
I'm with right now. And so it's also about like asking those questions instead of, it's going to take a lot, I think, as human beings, and maybe it doesn't even have to take a lot, but it's going to take some effort. It's going to take some effort to maybe course correct some of the ways that we were being really wasteful, and being really wasteful with each other, being really wasteful in our convenience and all of those things. And hopefully, like in the beginning, maybe we can just pour more of those, listen to those messages, be open to those messages right now. Like you getting up daily and being like, how can I be open to receive another message like chosen? I'm ready for that next level. Like, because all of the work that you're doing is just opening yourself up to hearing those messages.
Yeah. The daily decision. The daily decision.
It is a daily decision. Well, what is something that you've absolutely like enjoyed about, I don't know, have you been quarantined with anybody? Like, are you quarantined with your family? Do you have friends? Like,
I'm here.
more solitary time?
Yeah, I'm here solo.
Okay. I can relate.
Yeah. Well, for the majority of it, I wasn't,
Okay.
which was good. I was with a friend, and then family in some parts of it, but
Okay.
primarily I've been with people,
Okay.
which has been good for me. I do know myself, and I do know I naturally enjoy my space.
Okay.
But I could sense like within me when all this was starting to go down, I noticed a sense of panic starting to form in me. And so I was like, I don't want to be alone right now. I feel like I said, usually I like to go out and be social, but then when I come home, I like to just have me time, which is important. But also I was like, okay, during this season, I want to be around people I care about and that care about me. So I acted accordingly, and I'm glad I did. And
yeah.
Well,
have you been coaching through this at all?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So what has been,
working.
as kind of that coach for other people, like what has been something that you've consistently seen, or like what do you think, like as an audience, we can do to help each other through this?
Yeah. So the first part, I've consistently seen that the majority of the people that I coach are either like 17 to like early 20s right now. Okay. Surprisingly, most of them are dealing with this very healthy.
Okay. I like it. I like hearing that.
Yeah. Which I wasn't sure, because these people, they do identify as, having, mental health concerns. And so my mind kind of naturally drifted to like, oh no, this is a big situation. Like, how are they going to handle it? And they've all been consistently reporting like doing very well in their mental and their spiritual health, and feelings of feeling cooped up, but that's pretty normal for a lot of us.
What have they been doing?
Yeah.
How have they been filling their cup?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's different for each of them. But I have one guy. He's been working on his truck a lot.
Okay.
Working on his car, and just getting to know it. Just spending time with his vehicle. And that brings him through gratitude and joy, and he's learning new things about his vehicle. So I would say consistently across the board, it's about the little things.
Okay.
The things that like aren't so little, that in everyday life we kind of put in the back of our minds of like, oh, like I have this, but like I'm busy on this. But now it's, this situation has kind of allowed us this space to like back to basics again, and spending time with family if you can, or just spending time with yourself, and projects that we have, or ideas, going for walks, being in nature. Like I've literally been I moved into a new apartment through all this as well, which was kind of challenging, but it all worked out. And I love sitting on my front porch. I've never had a front porch of my own, but I have a front porch, and I have a chair that I found, and I love it. And I love sitting here with my tea and the occasional cigar, and just like, I don't know, it's just like, I can't remember the last time that I did this, like, and just sat, so yeah, so consistently across the board. And to answer the second part of your question, which is what all can we do? Focus on the simple things that bring you joy. Like I said, for me, sometimes it's just sitting here. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and for me, that resonates big time with me too. I immediately went back to the small things and the little things, especially going through, the health stuff with Simba, and just being so uncertain about that, man. It came down to like the little moments, and just really engaging 100% in the little moments, because, when we go through things like this, and when what trauma is like, I know what trauma is like, when you're on that edge, like, you really learn and feel and experience that you don't have control over any of it.
Yeah.
We act like we do, our minds tell us that we do, we've allowed that to stop us, but there's no guarantee.
No, the only thing that we have control over is ourselves.
Yeah.
And even that for some people is difficult.
Well, it is difficult. I mean, it's not for, like, that's just difficult. Getting to know ourselves is difficult.
Yeah.
We have a lot of distractions. We've got a lot of, there's a lot of things vying for our time and attention. And we're also not teaching really all that well right now how to pay attention and how to grow that and expand that, so we can put it towards the things that we love and those things that fill our cup.
Yeah. Well, my phone's at 4%.
All right.
It's at 3% now.
3%. All right. Well, if you could say like one thing right now, and especially this is kind of going to be for the class of 2020 that just graduated, like, is there just a little thing of wisdom that you could give them right now to help them through this and into kind of their next stage of, with things being kind of so up in the air right now?
Are you talking about like high school graduates?
Yeah, or graduate. I mean, just graduation, like just it can be high school graduates.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know high school graduates are generally super bummed right now because none of them got to have the ceremony and walk. And I've seen certain towns that I've been rolling through do really cool things, like post on lamp posts, their senior picture and their name. And so that's pretty cool that towns and cities are trying to find ways to honor these students. But yeah, I guess my main thing is moving forward. Some people your age are going to think they have it figured out, and they're going to have their whole trajectory mapped out of like whatever that may be. And there's other people, which is where I was at, where I had no idea, and I was just happy to have graduated. So I would say two things. One, soak up the moment. Be grateful that you made it this far, because there's many that haven't, and there's been a lot of challenging moments along the way, but you made it. So celebrate that. But then the second thing is moving forward, just focus on the things that bring you life, and try to figure out a way to make that your path. It's not going to be easy. The answers aren't always going to be right in front of you, but the journey is worth it.
Yeah.
You'll thank yourself later in life if you dedicate it. The earlier you start pursuing what you truly love. And if you don't know what you love, just start with what you like, and start with what sparks your interest, and research.
Yeah.
Keep researching, put more energy into those things, and eventually you'll figure it out. So
dude, I love that. That. And that's very good. Well, I'm trying to also put together like a collection of a graduation speech, because I've been listening to a lot of those. And I think, we're all kind of at that stage where we're graduating into a new level. So that's just I think that that's just beautiful advice,
I love it.
beautiful advice in general. So I
Love it.
appreciate your time, and you know, as always, I just love our conversation. So I appreciate you being here with us and sharing a bit of your story, hon.
Thank you for having me, Dustin. I love you.
Yes, I love you too, sweetheart.
Bye.
Bye.